We are live, everybody. Sorry about that. Hope everybody's doing well tonight. We are going to be going over, and I'm very excited about this. I know it's the new season of the United Football League, the UFL. It was the USFL before, and it combined with the XFL to be the UFL. So we wanted to go back in time and look at the 1985 Topps USFL cards. Now, some of the cards we're going to go through, or the initial cards we're going to go through, will be the stars from that set, or what have become the stars of that set. Maybe they weren't the stars at that time, but they will be the stars. So, and then we'll go through some stories about those cards as we move, some other cards, that is, as we move through. So let's get started. Talk about the first card. First card is of Doug Williams. Now, Doug Williams was a quarterback who had some time in the NFL, and then he was picked up by the USFL, and then he signed with the Washington Redskins, and he was, I believe, the Super Bowl MVP of Super Bowl 22 for the Washington Redskins. They won the Super Bowl, and he was asked quite that ridiculous question, or at least it seems that way now. He was asked by a media person, how long have you been a black quarterback? Which obviously was a very ridiculous question for someone like Doug Williams, but he was the MVP. I'm just double checking on that. So let's go to the next card here, and we have Reggie White. Now, Reggie White, you may remember a lot of Reggie with the Green Bay Packers, but he started off with the Memphis Showboats in the USFL, or he played for them in the USFL, and he also played for the Carolina Panthers. So he was, let's see, I guess he was drafted by the Memphis Showboats, and then he went to the Philadelphia Eagles, the Green Bay Packers, and the Carolina Panthers. He went to school at Tennessee, and he was just a great defensive player for a number of years, especially for those Green Bay Packer teams. Okay. Next player is Doug Flutie, who went to Boston College, and he had the game-winning touchdown pass against the Miami Hurricanes when he was with Boston College, which is a famous throw. It was one of those Hail Marys that actually somebody caught. He was chosen by the New Jersey Generals, who actually played at the same stadium as the Giants, but they were New Jersey Generals. He was a quarterback there. He went on then, let's see here. I want to get this right. New Jersey Generals. Then he went to the Chicago Bears. Then he went to the New England Patriots. Then he went up to the CFL with the BC Lions, British Columbia Lions. He went to the Calgary Stampeders. He went to the Toronto Argonauts. He was very successful in the CFL. I think he won a few championships with them as well. And then he went to the Buffalo Bills and the San Diego Chargers, and he went back to the New England Patriots for one season. And yes, I know he had some Flutie flakes there, I think, around when he was playing with Buffalo and San Diego. So that's all about Doug Flutie. The next player is Herschel Walker, who was a prized running back. He went to the University of Georgia. Let me see if or when I'm jumping around here. Herschel Walker went to the University of Georgia. Let me just see here. And I believe he started with the New Jersey Generals. So he and Doug Flutie were on the same team. Then he was picked up in that expansion draft, if you will, from the USFL to the NFL with the Dallas Cowboys. And that's when Dallas made that huge trade that brought all these draft picks to them. He was traded to the Minnesota Vikings, and he only spent, let's see, about 2-3 seasons with them, 89 through 91. So that's probably 3 seasons. He was with the Vikings, then he was with the Eagles, the Giants, and he came back to the Cowboys in 96 and 97. But he's recently ran for Senate and he's very well known for those draft picks that the Cowboys got that helped them win a few Super Bowls there in the early 90s. The next player is Jim Kelly, and as you may or may not know or remember, Jim Kelly, he started with the Houston Gamblers, but then he was picked up by the Buffalo Bills, and he unfortunately lost 4 Super Bowls in a row with the Buffalo Bills. So his time with the Bills was not as successful as he probably had hoped. He is from the Pittsburgh area. He went to I think he went to Pitt. No, he went to Miami. What am I thinking? He went to the University of Miami. And the photo that you see, or the image of the card, it's a very weird image. If you can just look at it, it's not maybe the most quarterback looking photo there ever was on a card, but that is Jim Kelly, the great quarterback. And I believe he's battled cancer twice and overcome it. So he's done just a terrific job health wise in battling that, which is so difficult for so many people. And finally, with the stars from this USFL set comes a very young Steve Young with the LA Express. And let's see, Steve Young, he went to Brigham Young. He's actually a distant relative of Brigham Young. Let's see, where did he start with? Let me just get this all right. Where is it? He started with the LA Express. And then he went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for 2 years. And then he spent, 13 years with the San Francisco 49ers. He's a 3-time Super Bowl champion. He was the Super Bowl MVP in Super Bowl 29. So just a great career once Joe Montana left. And as you all know, he's a lefty. And I think he still does some commentary or NFL on CBS or whatever. And just for those on the line right now, I'm going to remind myself and try to do this all the time. If you haven't, please like and please subscribe to our channel. We have these kinds of live streams on a weekly basis, and then we have shows about just fun little stories about players or teams or trades or things that have happened to athletes in the past. So okay, now this first player here, and let me try to get in a little bit closer. His name is Tony Frisch. Now Tony may not be what you say a at-home name, but he did win a Super Bowl in 1972 with the Dallas Cowboys. He played for the Gamblers, and oh my God, it just escapes me. They were with Houston Gamblers. Boy, I should know that. You think Vegas though when you think Gamblers, but there wasn't a team in Vegas like most pro sports. But he spent time in the NFL with Dallas, San Diego Chargers, Houston Oilers, New Orleans Saints, and the Houston Gamblers. Now, what's interesting about Tony is that he's from Austria, and he actually won in association football. So I guess that's like rugby in Austria. He won championships there in 64, 67, and 68. And he won a Super Bowl championship in 72. So he is the only player to have an association football championship and an American football championship. So very interesting. He was a kicker. And I say that just with a small smile on my face, because you know that kickers are just a different kind of breed. He might have been a soccer player kind of thing or something like that. You know, it's a different position than it would be for like a lineman or even secondary running back, those kinds of things. And they usually have relatively long careers. And he did. I mean, if you think he won championships in Austria in, what did I say, the 60s, he played football until 85. So he had, 18 years or so or more of football. So, all right, let's go to the next player here. Now, John Reeves was one of the top players, one of the top quarterbacks, in the USFL. And let me see if I don't have his stats in front of me, but okay, he did play in the NFL. He played with Philadelphia, Cincinnati, Minnesota, Houston. He played with the Tampa Bay Bandits, and then after the league disbanded, he went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was a coach at Florida and South Carolina. And let's see, in the USFL, he had on this card here, he had for his career 5,818 yards. He had 37 touchdowns. Now, I believe that one of his issues, and let me just double check on this, was the fact that he did throw a number of interceptions. Like, for example, in 1971, he had 193 completions, 356 attempts. He had 2,104 yards. He had 17 touchdowns and 21 interceptions. So he was a quarterback in the NFL. He had some success, but unfortunately, he did throw for a great number of interceptions. In 1970, he had 13 touchdowns passing and 19 interceptions. So he was just, I don't know, I don't have any film on him that I watched or anything like that, but he did have some tough times from there. Okay. The next quarterback from the USFL is Rick Neuheisel. Now, Rick Neuheisel probably is better known for those who follow football, especially college football, because he spent a great deal of his career or time after his career as a coach. He went to UCLA. He had very much success with coaching. He went to UCLA, and he played at UCLA. But he coached, let me see, is there just one listing that, well, maybe I can get the stats right quick. He coached at Colorado, then Washington, the state of Washington, or the Huskies, and then he went to UCLA, and I think he's just I don't mean it just, but I think he's an analyst or a broadcaster now. It looks like he hasn't coached since 2011. And he had, some great success with Colorado, helping to turn that program around during the mid 90s. He did have some success as well with Washington. He came in first. He won the Rose Bowl. And actually with Colorado, he had 3 bowls, all of which he won. So he did have some success. He was with the Gunslingers in the USFL in this card. I don't think they had a real rough time. Let's see where I'm looking for. They're the San Antonio Gunslingers. They were probably what they would consider a disappointing 5-13. They played at the Alamo Stadium. I'm assuming that's the Alamo Dome, where the San Antonio Spurs still play there. I'm not even sure. They might. But anyway, so that's Rick Neuheisel. Next player is Cliff Stout. Now, Cliff Stout did play in the NFL. He's not, I say this all the time on my videos. He's not a household name. He was basically a backup quarterback for most of his tenure. He played with the Steelers. Then he went to the Birmingham Stallions. Then he went to the St. Louis/Phoenix Cardinals. That's when they moved during his stint. He played in 86 with the St. Louis Football Cardinals. And did they move in 87 after the season? I think that's what it was. And they became the Phoenix Cardinals, now the Arizona Cardinals. He played with Miami and Dallas. Now he has in his NFL stats 23 touchdowns and 43 interceptions. But he was a 5th round draft pick by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he was a 3rd-string quarterback to Terry Bradshaw from 77 to 79. So he was always kind of seen as that backup quarterback. I think with Birmingham, he got to play a little bit more. 3rd game of the season was a home opener for the Maulers. Stout was heckled and built. So I think he played a little bit more with them. Okay. Now, Bobby Hebert I know that's the way you pronounce it because I actually remember him. He had a great career with the New Orleans Saints. He played there from 85 to 92, but he was with the Oakland Invaders, which are kind of the facsimile of the Los Angeles or Oakland Raiders at the time. Rather than Raiders, they had the Invaders. But Bobby Hebert, he went to Northwestern State. So another person, who didn't have that pedigree, from a school that you easily recognize, but a great quarterback. Anyway, he started with the Michigan Panthers of the USFL. He played there 83, 84. Then he went over to Oakland Invaders in 85. So he was probably drafted by the NFL as well, but he was drafted and went to play for the USFL right away. And he had a very solid career for the Saints in the mid 80s to the early 90s. And I got to tell you, his nickname there was the Cajun Cannon because of his arm. And he did have a great arm. And I bet you if those teams were a little bit better, people would have a different kind of thought of Bobby Hebert. He had, let's see, his passer rating overall was 78. He had 21,000 passing yards. So he had a pretty good NFL career with New Orleans. Let's just see games started. He didn't really become a starter until 87. He passed for 2,100, 3,100, 2,600. In 1992, I think he led the NFL with 3,200 yards passing. They were 12-4. Let's see what else. He had 19 touchdowns and 16 interceptions. So, and his quarterback rating was in 82.9. So not a bad career. A pretty good quarterback for the NFL. Now, the next player is Marcus Dupree. Now, Marcus Dupree is one of those, I guess, in some ways, and if Marcus was on the line, I probably wouldn't say this, but he had one of those unfortunate careers. He sustained an injury. He went to Oklahoma and sustained, I want to hold on one second. Let me think about this. Was it in Oklahoma that he got the injury? He was out of shape. That's what it was. And then he played in the USFL, and I think that's where he got the injury. And he was, a top running back in the day. Statistically speaking, he had, let me just double check this to make sure I'm right. But he had some crazy amount of rushing yards in his college career. In 1982, he had 1,393 yards. He had 12 touchdowns. And 1,300 yards for a college rusher is pretty big. And then in 83, I think he had some issues with his coach. In 83, he only had 396 yards. He went to the USFL and he scored a touchdown on his first professional possession, and he was injured, and I guess he was sort of not always played. And so he did start, but he did have a bad knee, and that's what hurt him. Now, years later, he had a conversation with Walter Payton. Payton basically said, "Hey, you're in pretty good shape. Why don't you try out again?" And the LA Rams actually signed him in 1990, and he rushed for a few yards. So he had an NFL career with the LA Rams in 90 and 91. He played in 84 for the New Orleans Breakers and 85 the Portland Breakers. Now, just to let you know, ESPN, I believe, has a 30 for 30 with this. It might be a 30 for 30 short, or it might be a long one. He went to Oklahoma and he put up massive numbers. And he was just a wildly successful running back in college, especially in 82, like I had talked about. Now, the next player is Mike Rozier, who was a Heisman Trophy winner. And he played in the USFL and the NFL. He played he transferred to Nebraska from a small college. Coffeyville Red Ravens were the team name, and he transferred to Nebraska and won the Heisman Trophy in 1983. He was drafted by the Maulers and the or he played for the Pittsburgh Maulers. I believe that team in the USFL closed, and then he played for the Jacksonville Bulls, which is the card that you see there. He is in the College Hall of Fame, and he played for the Houston Oilers and Atlanta Falcons. Now, I want to say that, again, in 1983, Mike Rozier, the year he won the Heisman Trophy, he rushed for 2,295 yards. He had 29 touchdowns. And receiving, well, he only had 106 yards receiving, but he had almost 2,300 yards rushing in 1983 and 29 touchdowns. So he probably averaged something ridiculous like 2 touchdowns a game. I mean, just incredible. Yes, and he was drafted by the Pittsburgh Maulers, who closed. Okay, this next player here is kind of, dare I say, I don't know, kind of close to my heart. It's Brian Sipe. He played for the Cleveland Browns for a great amount of years. He's known for them. I believe that early in John Elway's career was one of those, the drive, where I believe Cleveland was winning. It was probably like the AFC Championship game, and Elway drove down the field and threw the last touchdown for them to win and go to the Super Bowl, which they obviously lost because they lost those Super Bowls in the 80s. But he was the quarterback, and he was a very good quarterback. And as a side note, he was in the 1961 Little League World Series for California. So he was probably a multi-sport athlete, like so many of these professional athletes are, because they're just so good at sports in general. He won the Most Valuable Player in 1980. So he wasn't just sort of a good Browns player. He was a good player, recognized by the league, and he went to San Diego State. And let me just make sure, he played with the New Jersey Generals, and then in 85 he played with the Jacksonville Bulls. But pretty much he played with the Cleveland Browns from 74 to 83. So that's 10 seasons rather. He plays an 11th season with the Generals, and then 12th season with the Bulls. And I think by that time, there's only so much life really in those in the NFL or playing professional football. All right, so that's, we have one more. I'm sorry, and I don't know where he came from, but this is let me just make sure I have it up on the screen correctly. This is David Dumars. Now, I sort of teased him yesterday. Okay, what's up? Race things. Okay, guys, I'm sorry I haven't been watching everything. We are talking about USFL players. We went through some of the stars. We went through some of the better players. I'm good, Nathaniel. How about you? Race things. How are you? Now, anybody on the stream right now, if you haven't, please like and subscribe. Like this video and subscribe if you haven't. But right now, we're just kind of going through some. We did the stars. We did some of the secondary stars, some of the quarterbacks, some of those kinds of players, some players that have been, better or known for other things. Like Rick Neuheisel was really known as a college football coach, but he played in the USFL, those kinds of things. All right. Thanks, Nathaniel, for liking that. I appreciate it. But this next player here is David Dumars. Now, I'm sure that I know Nathaniel, and he's my number one fan. I'm just putting him in there. But I know he's 15 because he told me that one time on the chat, and he probably doesn't remember Joe Dumars of the Detroit Pistons. But David Dumars is actually the brother of Joe Dumars, and David Dumars currently is a assistant coach. He's an assistant basketball coach at McNeese State. So he spent 1 year, like in the late 90s, I think it was, or something like that, coaching football for college. But he has, for the last, 10 years or so, been coaching basketball. Let's see, playing career. He played for He played for, I believe, didn't he went to McNeese State? I believe, yeah. Oh wait, oh, no, he went to Louisiana Monroe. I'm sorry. And then he coached football at Southeast Missouri in 88, 89. And from 2000 to now, he's been an assistant basketball coach at McNeese State. So not only does he have a famous Hall of Fame brother that played basketball with Detroit, he's a basketball coach for McNeese State, and he's been there 24, 25 years. He played for the Montreal in the Canadian Football League. He played for the Jets for a year, and then he played in the USFL with Denver and Birmingham. Denver was the gold, and Birmingham were the Stallions. Okay, now we're going to go on to some quirky things about the USFL. Let me just see right here, see if we got these. Okay, we don't have these guys on, so I'm going to have to kind of. Okay, this is right here. This is Luis Zendejas. He was a kicker. And this is Tony Zendejas. Now, Luis, I believe, had some brothers that played, but these two guys that played in the USFL at the same time were cousins. And they both grew up in California. And just a couple of the next ones here are just some crazy names. I'm going to show that up there. Thank you very much, Nathaniel. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I'm going to keep up the good work. And I'll tease tomorrow night's show when I can. If you haven't already, please like this video and subscribe if you haven't to my channel. Tomorrow night will be about interesting stories about the players who were in the 1972 Topps baseball card set. I hope I made sense. Tomorrow night's video will start at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific, and we're going to be talking about 1972 Topps baseball stories using the cards like we do with all of these kinds of stories. But this next player on here I just put up because I thought he had an interesting name. His first name was Putt, and I think like golf when I think that, and his last name was Choate, I'm assuming. And if it was like Putt Choke, it would be kind of funny. I know these aren't like laugh out loud funny. Now this next player I thought just had an interesting name. Maybe not the most Robert Pennywell. He would be great if he was playing football now and making millions of dollars, but Pennywell, I think he sounds like a Batman's butler kind of thing. And this last guy here sounds like he should really be working against Joey Chestnut in Nathan's hot dog eating contest. His name is Irv Eatman, and I just think it's a wonderful name, and it's a shame he doesn't compete in any of those, or maybe he does and we just don't know it, but in any of those professional eating contests. But I thought that was great. If you're just joining us, we're going through the 1985 USFL football cards that were made by Topps. And now on the next couple players, I'm just kind of showing you, and I'll just walk you through these. They're really here to kind of just show you what the players looked like back then. The LA Express had the LA on the helmet. Relatively simple, had some sort of logo here on the arms, but it looks like maybe black and red or some dark color in red were their colors. The Outlaws, obviously another logo on the side. Looks like they had the same logo on the helmet. And the Outlaws, what did I say they were? Were they the Outlaws? Now I have to go through all these. The Outlaws. I'm getting the Outlaws and the Bandits all confused. It was the Arizona Outlaws. Now the Invaders were Oakland. I got to call up the screen so you guys can actually see what I'm looking at. But so the Invaders had completely different colors than what the Raiders did. It looks like a dark yellow, almost an orange kind of helmet, and a light blue. So they didn't have those imposing colors that the Raiders obviously did. The Bulls, which were the Tampa Bay Bulls, sort of had this, I don't know, some sort of moving motion of a bull and a real simple kind of maroon kind of look to their jersey. So nothing really forward looking that much. Now the Renegades, and if you can see their helmet, was somewhat interesting. It looks like it has a tomahawk on it, if I can hold it steady. And that is what they look like. Then the generals, and I think you've seen this on some of the cards already. They have those. Basically, it's a red outfit, a red uniform, but with stars in a circular pattern, like a general would. You can kind of see it there too, as well. The breakers, kind of a lame helmet. I want to say it was probably reminiscent of, it's like breaking water kind of thing. They ended up being the Portland Breakers, I believe. They moved from down south. Hey, what's up, Dino 48? We're just talking about USFL football. Yeah, and so these were the Breakers uniforms, kind of lame. Here's the Gunslingers, which were San Antonio, I said. An interesting green and blue, kind of without the silver, but kind of a Seattle look to it. But that was their uniform. Now the gold, I have a couple of these. This is the Denver gold. And it was essentially black, yellow, and white. And they had on the side of their helmet like it almost looks like a sun, but I guess it's like a piece of gold or something like that. So that's what we had there. And we're just about at the end. We have the Gamblers, which was Houston. They have Texas, but you can kind of see, you can kind of see a G there for Gamblers, but it's Houston has the star and it's Texas right there. So, okay, let me change the camera around. We're getting into the closing. A couple of things, like tomorrow, we're going to be talking about 1972 players. Now, this is Rick Wise. Why I have Rick Wise is that, oh yeah, Nathaniel, it probably is a shiny gold nugget. You're probably right. Rick Wise is here because he was against, he was traded for Steve Carlton, but we'll get into more of that tomorrow night. So I just want to thank you all for watching. So Nathaniel, Race Things, Dino, and everyone else, thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 Pacific, and we'll be talking about baseball stories from the players who were in the 1972 Topps set, if that makes sense. We're going to show the 72 Topps baseball cards, and we have a few stories about some of those players. So I will see you tomorrow night. And then, yeah, Nathaniel, if you can get some more subscribers and some anything like that, that would be great. I'm going to have you as my moderator here, if you're okay with that. So looking forward to it. Have a great day. Be well. Take care.